a painting is both an image and a physical creation. So, you know, the way the paint is manipulated that's really important to an artist, even if it's not to the viewer. I think it should be. You see, so this is the painting in the corner there, the reddish one. So this is a model, Petrova. So since 2014, working on things like the bench, you know, the big long one, it's all done from photographs. And so when you work on something from photographs for a long period of time, you sort of crave painting from life. That immediacy, that excitement, that unexpectedness. So I decided to basically, once a week, pay somebody to sit for me, and then invite whoever, my artist friends, if they wanted to come along and paint as well. But it's for me. It's not for them. So I choose the model, I set the pose. If there's a background, I do the background. So that it's for me, that's entirely for me. And it's developed into this sort of community. It's really, really good. So on Tuesday nights, we paint from 7 o'clock till 9:30 with a little break in the middle. And now we do it over 2 weeks. So same model, same pose over 2 weeks. So this is Petrova, one of our models. That's the start of the painting. This is by Michael Ashcroft of the same model. So Michael's an art gallery artist here as well. And so that's the finished painting, which is just behind you. As you can see, the colours are rubbish in the slides. So, but it's a long way from a sensible artist like this, who just finishes it on the night, to an obsessive idiot like this, who just goes like overboard and spends forever on this picture. You see the figure in the top right, which is added, is this girl, who's Fiona, who is this model. So this will be a theme. What I started to do is, when the models were having breaks, I'd take photographs of them. Because when somebody comes in and sits down and they're nervous because they've never done it before, they say, you know, how do you want me? Like this sort of thing. And you can tend to, you know, I tend to pretend to start painting, but I keep an eye on them, like over there. And then when they think I'm not looking, they relax a little bit, and then they go into the interesting pose. But that all takes time. So it's useful to photograph the models in the break, where they take up natural poses. So this is Fiona, this model, but in the break, and she was used for the figure in the top right of the other painting. So this is an unusual painting for me because the space is flattened. I tend to create a sort of believable space, mostly in paintings, but if you notice here, like, the size of these doesn't go much smaller as it goes up into the back of the painting. So it's flattened out in the way that I really admire in Matisse. You see, it's a very red painting, and the pattern here is flat, and the pattern there is flat. It's the same kind of effect. Now, one thing I realized is that Matisse owned this painting by Degas. He owned it. So the fact that Matisse painted red painting, flat, is not by chance, because he owned this painting, which is, what, in my opinion, one of the greatest paintings in the National Gallery. It's a large Degas, but look at the simplicity, you know? It's incredible, and the paintwork is really wonderful, but, you know, the incredible simplicity of the lines delineating the form, and I could just talk for an hour about that one. But so this is this painting here, which sort of comes from another tradition of Cézanne. So some people will say or think that as an artist you need to be original, you know, or even worse, unique. And now if you imagine going into your studio and saying, I need to be unique today, I need to be really myself. How do you know how to be yourself? It's the worst thing to try and be. So I always tell my students, try to be other people. You know, try to be an artist who you already admire, but you don't think you could ever be like them. You'll always be yourself. You can't be anything else. And in doing that, you'll push your boundaries of your knowledge and understanding and abilities. So a lot of these works, I'm not saying, I pulled this off the internet. I didn't look at this and then do that. The model came, and my response to her was, in this instance, to really try and get every single patch of colour and tonality exactly right. Working very slowly and very carefully. And it's just one approach. And it's a completely different approach to that, or to other ones. And I don't know why. But having built up a sort of knowledge of different artists and loving all these different artists, it's almost like when you're presented with a model, you don't do it deliberately, but one approach sort of bubbles to the surface. So this is painted over 2 weeks, and at the end of the first week, just while the painting was dried, I put tape on it, like bits of masking tape in different areas. I don't know why exactly, but to sort of preserve some of the first layer. And then after I painted it on a while, I took the masking tape off and had a look what it was like. Because I knew it'd be so easy to overwork it, to put too much paint on everywhere and just completely obliterate the first layer. So some paintings are painted almost exactly, not exactly, it's not a copy of what was there, but the colours are measured to be as exact as possible. And in another instance, I deliberately change the colours altogether. If I don't find them interesting, I'll completely change them. So this is Ruby, the model for the painting over to on the right there. And you can see, even in the dim light, that here she's got a flowery dress on, and here she's got a white dress on, here she's got a red top on, there she's got a green top on. And so it's really changed what was there. And this is a very different approach to what I normally do. This is the end of the first week. Okay? I never do this. I've never done that in my life before. Around the edges of the picture, you'll see these little marks. So they are viewfinder marks. So whatever shape of board I have, I look through the viewfinder and I've marked half and quarter ways. So I'm like, where would the figure be best? So it's a really considered decision right at the beginning, because I want it to be not just a portrait, you see, in the sense that, yeah, you're absolutely right. In a portrait, normally you have the person looking with more space in front than behind. It just looks comfortable. But if you're creating a kind of tension or narrative, you might break that rule. And I'll show you some Degas paintings that really do break that rule. So she's waiting for this person to come along. But I didn't know who that person would be or what it would be at all. Yeah, that's right. So it's setting up the possibility of a narrative. The reason this is so unusual technically for me is that the head is finished and the hands are almost developed and nothing else is done. I never do that. The only reason I could do that at all is because the model is so good. She's a professional model. She's even been featured in Lancashire Life, and she's really good. She just sits like a rock, you know? And so I could just paint the head and finish it. Whereas normally, often we get people who aren't models at all. They've never sat for a picture in their lives. So some people can sit still and some people can't, but you work with what it is. So this was the end of the first week, and I have no idea what I will do with the space. But not that I'd seen this particular painting. This is an example of somebody's work I might be looking at. And the way that this artist called Nick Alm connects areas of light together and connects areas of dark together, so that if you squint your eyes, can you see how the dynamics of the light and dark is really dramatic, really powerful. And it's horrible to show you slides of things like that until we come back to my work, but we're going to do that anyway. So this is a drawing I did. So most people who come along to my painting sessions, you know, they're sensible and the model's there, and when the model sits down again, they start painting the model and they look at the model. I'm like this whirlwind over in the corner, painting the thing upside down or putting it on the floor or doing all this crazy stuff. So at this point, before I did the second session on this painting. This is a little drawing. It's only about this big, so it's hard to tell. But I was basically figuring out the light and dark pattern that I wanted. So I want the light areas here, and then the dark areas around. So it's not what was there, but it's the way I want the light to be distributed in the painting. And then, I proceeded to sort of block in, still not knowing what would be there. But here's Tracy doing some painting. And as you can see, I've started to use Tracy in my picture. Because she's wearing this great apron. I thought it might be like a waiter or waitress figure here. I did it after repaint. So that was first, I repainted her because it was the wrong size. You see the different size between those two. But that's where that figure came from. If you look, you can see it on the actual painting, but the lines of the apron are scratched through the paint. So, if we look, I'll put this photograph again. If we look at the initial photograph, the real areas of contrast are the edges of the jacket. But I felt that shape, that sort of bulky square shape, didn't really do it for me. Didn't really say ruby. Didn't really say elegance or interest. So I basically lost a lot of the edges and reduced the contrast between that and the background, and then changed the skirt to light to fit in with my plan a little bit better.